Hello everyone, I am here in front of you with this year's economic survey. So this is economic survey 2023-24. When I was going through this year's economic survey, I realized that there is something interesting which caught my attention, and that concept is called as Stockdale Paradox. Now, I won't call it as the theme of this year's economic survey, but I would definitely tell you that this is one of the underlying philosophies and principles which have been used by the chief economic advisor in writing down this year's economic survey. So I thought, why not have a brief discussion with all of you related to this very important concept, which can be applied in real life as well as economics. To explain to you what is the meaning of Stockdale Paradox, I have an example which is very much connected with your real life. So now you are preparing for UPSC, right? Now, imagine that this is day one of your preparation, and this is the month of January when you decided to prepare. So what will you do? What are the things that you will do for your preparation? You will make a list of all the subjects that you need to prepare. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. And then for every subject like polity, economy, history, culture, geography, science and tech, environment, etc., etc. For every subject, you will make a list of resources, that which books, which notes are you going to refer to. This is the first thing that we do, right? After you do that, you actually start your preparation. And then when you prepare for a month, let's say January you prepared, February you appear in a mock test. In that mock test, you did well in every subject, but in one subject you did not do well. And the name of that subject is economics. Unfortunately, God forbid. I hope it doesn't happen, but suppose it has happened just for the example. So you have not done well in economics. You are an innocent kid, see, you felt very bad. And then what happened is you felt so bad because you are very emotional. You felt so bad that you decided, I will not even prepare now. Sometimes we take things too hard. Now imagine you are talking to somebody and the person blocks your number. How will you feel? You'll feel very bad. So this is what kind of feeling came to you, and you decided, I will not prepare for the exam. Total collapse. Why? So if you follow this type of strategy in economics, policy making, it is called as waterfall strategy. It's called as waterfall strategy. Now, what is wrong in this strategy? So what happened is you set a target. Then you do a survey that, okay, to crack UPSC exam, I have to do this subject. These are the resources. But what you do is when you implement your strategy, you are very rigid in that. You are not open to change. So in your strategy, you never thought that I might not do well in a subject. And when you actually did not do well in a subject, you are not ready to change it. So that is the negative side of this strategy, because here things are planned and they're executed in a very rigid manner. Right? That's the problem. So what could be a better strategy? I'll tell you a better strategy. Now imagine a better strategy. Imagine that everything is like this only. There's just one change. When you did not do well in economy, you started to devote little more time in the subject. And then you also changed 1 or 2 resources. The books which you are following, you changed it. Plus you spend more time. Why? Because when you appear in the mock test, you take a feedback that, okay, my performance in mock test in economics is not good, other subjects is good. So what did you do? You planned that you will prepare for UPSC. You appear in the mock test, executed. You don't do well in economics. You took the feedback. Then you changed your material, spend more time in the subject, and now you have started to do well in the subject. So whenever you perform an activity, then you take the feedback and then you incorporate the feedback and then you create a new strategy and launch yourself again. You keep doing this. So whenever you don't perform in something, you re-strategize and launch yourself again. This type of strategy in economics is called as barbell strategy. See, barbell strategy. Now, there is one problem. So what happens is you appear in the mock test, you don't do well in economics, then you took the feedback and then you improved and you are doing really well. So in barbell strategy, whenever you take a feedback, and if the feedback is negative, only in those things you improve. So suppose that in the first mock test, you did not do well in economics, then you improved because you took the feedback, barbell strategy, see, you spend more time in the subject, now you are doing really well. So now in next 20-30 mock test, you are doing well, and you are feeling, you have a firm faith that when the real UPSC exam comes, you are going to rock the exam. When is your real UPSC exam? Suppose 16th of June. That's your real UPSC exam. And what belief do you have? Because you are doing really well in the mock test that you are definitely going to crack the exam. 16th June is your prelims. Now, what happens is, on 10th of June, you decide to appear in your final mock test, thinking that let me appear it in one more time because I have done really well and I know I will do well. And if I do really well again on the 10th of June, then in 16th, when the real exam happens, I'm definitely going to perform better because I'll be more confident. So on 10th of June, when you appear in the mock test, you all of a sudden discover that in that mock test, a lot of questions were asked from sports. And we never prepare sports for UPSC in that much of detail, right? Hardly one or two things we will know. For example, what is Khelo India scheme? That's it. One or two more things. We don't prepare sports exhaustively. But suppose that in that mock test, a lot of questions from current affairs sports were asked and you are not prepared. So what will happen now? So since you were never thinking that there could be something new also just before the exam, collapse can happen. So in barbell strategy also there could be a problem. What is the best solution? Now there is a solution. The solution is, and this solution is something which the economic survey talks about this year. Solution says that imagine that you start your preparation. Now in the first mock test, second mock test, suppose you didn't do well in economics. You re-strategize and then you improve yourself. And then you think that in future, I'm definitely going to do well in the subject, which means that you have firm faith. See? You have firm faith that in future you are really going to perform well because you are taking feedback and you are constantly improving. Along with that, there is one more psychological thinking in you, which is that I am also ready to fill all gaps, if any, till the exam date, which means just before the exam also, if I appear in a mock test and if I'm not doing well in something drastically new like sports, which you never thought that questions will be asked. But in the last mock test, questions are asked from sports. So psychologically, you were ready that, okay, in future, I'm definitely going to do well. Plus, you are also thinking that if I don't do well in something which I'm not prepared for, instead of panicking, I'll prepare it. Even one day before the exam, I'm ready to prepare, which means you are fully flexible. You are bold enough to face any situation. You are hopeful about the future, but in present, if you are facing any issues, you are ready to handle it with all boldness and courage. If this combination of attitude is there, then nothing can surprise you. This type of strategy is called as Stockdale Paradox. Right, guys? So we saw three strategies. The first is waterfall strategy, second is barbell strategy, and third is Stockdale Paradox. Now let me take you through the real economic survey. Now see guys, in front of you, I have taken economic survey 21-22. Now, why was the economic survey 21-22 important? Because you very well know, and we all know it. We have faced the impacts of COVID. So there was this COVID in 2020. And government was very much confused because there were two questions in front of the government in 2020. What was the question? Either save life or save livelihood. So government was confused what to do. If lockdown is imposed, we can save life. But when lockdown is imposed, livelihood is gone. So what did government do? Government had to do the balancing act, right? But they have to give preference to life, but they have to balance it out. This was the challenge. So the underlying theme of the economic survey 2021-22, the underlying theme of the economic survey was saving lives and livelihood, right? And why was this the underlying thing? Because from 2020 till 21-22, these 3 years, 2020, 2021, 2022, government had to do this balancing act, that what to do, right? Because one after another, a wave was coming. So which strategy should the government follow when COVID is there? Waterfall strategy or barbell strategy? Now imagine if government follows waterfall strategy, what will happen? So during COVID, when the new wave of COVID is there in 2020, government will create a strategy that, okay, I'm going to write a nice file like this, and I will write that during COVID, these many hospitals will be created, these many businesses will be promoted, etc., etc. Thinking that COVID has only one variant, COVID-19. But then we know that second wave of COVID came, third wave of COVID also came. So if you follow a rigid strategy during COVID, when the second wave comes, you will not be ready for that. Hence, waterfall strategy cannot be followed. So which strategy will be followed in that case? Barbell strategy. Because you will create a plan, but you will also take feedback from the economy whether your plan is helping or not. And if new wave of COVID comes, then what will you do? You will change your plan, isn't it? That's called barbell strategy. So which strategy was followed here? Barbell strategy was followed. Now, this was a crisis time. There was problem, hence barbell strategy was required. Now let's talk about this year's economic survey 23-24. What is the scenario? I'll tell you the scenario now. I'll show you something. So if you if you look at this year's economic survey, see, I have some numbers for you. So let's look at the growth trajectory of India, right? So look at the growth trajectory of India. 3.9%. Then during COVID, what happened? Minus 5.8. Then it improved, right? This is called base effect, because you are starting from very low level, so you jump very fast. Then 7%, 8.2%. Now, all these institutions in the world, OECD, World Bank, Standard & Poor, Asian Development Bank, IMF, RBI, Fitch. So all these institutions, see what they are saying for India, that in future, India's GDP rate of growth will be more than 7, more than 7, more than 7, 6.8, 6.6, 6.6, which means everybody is saying that India's rate of growth will be greater than 6.6. Most of them are saying 7, around 7, including RBI 7.2, but everybody is saying close to 7. Now, that means that we are very hopeful for the future, isn't it? So, and that is the reason that everybody is saying we will do definitely well in future. Hopes are there, faith is there. So, that is number one. Number two fact, which we have to keep in mind is this. Now, if you look at this growth trajectory of India, this is 1990, 1991, 92, 94, 96, aise karke till 2023, 24. All these years are there, right? Starting from 1990. Now, if you look at the per capita income of India, what is per capita income? You take national income, you divide it by population, you get per capita income. So, per capita income of India around 1990 was roughly around 6,000 rupees. Right, for one individual, 6,000 rupees. And here, if you talk about 23-24, it's rupees 2.12 lakhs. That's your per capita income. Now, if you compare the per capita income between 1990 and 23-24, there is a 35 times increase in rupee terms. And if you calculate the per capita income in the dollar terms also, there is a 7-time increase. Which means that there is a future prospect which says that, you know, India's per capita income is also increasing, and in future also it will increase. So everything is there which is making us very hopeful that things are going to be fine. So this economic survey says that we are extremely hopeful that things are going to be fine because everybody says so, and because after COVID, India has really bounced back compared to what we thought we would. We have been doing really well. And if you look at India in last 15-20 years, in 20 years also India has been doing well. At least this economic survey says that it's not just from 2014 onwards, but 1990 till now, we are consistently doing well. But this economic survey tells you one extra thing. This economic survey says that India wants to follow inclusive growth, and which looks as if we will, because momentum is there. Momentum means that since the COVID days, we have recovered really well. And most of the sectors, they are trying to recover. India is becoming a strong economy in terms of services, again, in defense, in manufacturing, MSMEs. Things are looking okay. Agriculture, okay, compared to other countries, global scenario. So it says momentum is there. So we will definitely be able to achieve it. But it says, along with momentum, we should always be mentally ready that if things are not going our side, and if things are going against our momentum, then we should be ready to accept it, plan again, so that we are able to achieve what our main target is. So Government of India's main target is that during Amrit Kal, which means by 2047, this is called Amrit Kal. So during Amrit Kal, Government of India wants to become a developed country. This is our target. And what kind of development do we want? Inclusive growth. So it is saying that we know we will be able to do it. But if something goes wrong in between, we should be ready to accept it and make changes. This type of combination of hope plus readiness to face the challenge is called as Stockdale Paradox. So Stockdale Paradox is the underlying philosophy of the economic survey, just like Barbell Strategy was the underlying philosophy of the economic survey in 21-22. Now this must make you wonder as to why there is a need to have this kind of thought process in the economic survey when we are not facing COVID. Yeah, there the problem was COVID. Here the problem is something else. Here the problem is global scenario as well as domestic scenario, which means that it looks as if there might be a few things which might not go our way. And then we should not panic. That is why the economic survey says, let us keep this Stockdale Paradox in mind. Just like during COVID, we kept Barbell Strategy in mind. Let me throw a little more light on it. So guys, you remember I told you this, that what are the 3 different growth strategies that one can follow. So one of the growth strategies is waterfall strategy. So for example, during COVID, there was health crisis and economic crisis. Now, as I was telling you, that imagine that we did a crisis analysis and we became very rigid that we will follow this strategy only. Then because of rigidness, if second wave of COVID would have come, we would have faced complete disaster. We would not even know what to do at that time. So this strategy was not a good strategy. So India avoided it. India did not follow the strategy. Which strategy India followed? The strategy followed by India was Barbell Strategy. From where did we borrow this Barbell Strategy? So there is a very nice book called as Anti-Fragile. This book has been written by Nazim Nicholas Taleb, an amazing kind of book. So a brilliantly written book, masterpiece. So he argues about this strategy called as Barbell Strategy in his book In the Financial Market, how to use that in financial market. So what did government of India do? They borrowed this strategy from where they used it in India. So what is a barbell? Look at this guy. This person is working out in the gym. So that is called barbell. This is barbell. Huh? Now suppose this person is India. Now what is Barbell Strategy? It says that when India was suffering from COVID, two things were required to be done at that time. Because if you hold this barbell and if the weights are balanced, then only you can hold it like this. But if you put more weight on one side, it will bend. So one should not do that. So what is a barbell? So according to Barbell Strategy during COVID time, what India did was two things. First of all, government of India made sure that we create almost a guarantee that life of vulnerable section of the society would be impacted less when COVID strikes them. So how do you make sure that? So for example, let's say there is women in the society, you give them 500 rupees per month. Similarly, government of India was giving 5 kg extra food grain to various sections of the society who are below poverty line, Antyodaya Anna Yojana, 5 kg extra food grain. Similarly, medicines were free. Similarly, so many other schemes were launched at that time, right? So for farmers as well. So government of India decided to give more cash to the society. Government of India decided to give more food and medicine to the society. Why? Because we were supposed to take care of the vulnerable section so that at least we could save them. Because whenever crisis hits, the first section to be negatively impacted is vulnerable. We wanted to save them. So this is one side of the barbell. Okay. Now what is the other side? Once you save your vulnerable section of the society, then you can launch policies about revival, like MSME policies, Atmanirbhar Bharat policy. These are the policies we launched, reforms we launched, and then we took feedback from the society that is it helping you? If it is not helping, then you replan and relaunch. So plan, launch, feedback. If required, relaunch, again feedback, relaunch, again feedback. So this type of strategy is called as agile approach. Agile approach means you are open-minded to launch something, take the feedback and you relaunch yourself. That is agile approach. So guys, what is Barbell Strategy? In Barbell Strategy, on one side, we were trying to protect the interest of the vulnerable section. On the other hand, we were trying to launch reforms, then look at the feedback, and then if required, launch again. This is agility. So Barbell Strategy and agile approach. This was the economic survey theme during COVID time, which I showed you. See, this economic survey, right? Now, more or less in the next economic survey, this was carried forward. But what is the current economic survey? So I showed you this book, no? So from this book, we got the Barbell Strategy. Let's come to this year's economic survey, which talks about Stockdale Paradox. Now, what is Stockdale Paradox? So there is a nice book again. So I got the book for you. So this is that book. It says Good to Great, Jim Collins. So Jim Collins has written this book. The book says Good to Great. And by the way, this book is a masterpiece when it comes to business and leadership. So if anybody is doing business in your known circle, etc., give them this book. When they read, they will realize how to progress in life from basic level to achieve goodness and then to become great. So here all the mantras of being great in whatever you do is given. It's a nice book. So what is the story given in this book? I'll tell you. So now you can see there is a picture in front of you on the board, right? So there are two pictures, in fact. This picture is of Hanoi Hilton prison. Hanoi Hilton prison is in Vietnam, right? So these are the prison mates who were captured here. So which war am I talking about? Any guesses? Vietnam War. So this picture was taken around 1969. So 1968-69, the involvement of US in Vietnam War was very aggressive. So what happens is, in the Vietnam War, one of the US Navy commanders, so and that Navy commander is him. So he was captured and he was put in this Hanoi Hilton prison for almost 8 years. Okay. In the meantime, what happens is his name is James. You can see James Stockdale, right? James Stockdale. So in the meantime, in the prison, there are two types of prisoners, and this is written in this book, right? Chapter 4, this thing is mentioned here. So there are two types of prisoners there. So first is this type of prisoner, and the second is Mr. James Stockdale. Now, what is the belief of these prisoners? They are also from US Navy and US Army. They were all captured and kept in that prison. So what were they thinking, these prisoners? These prisoners were thinking at that time when they were captured that, 100% we are going to get out of this prison. So we'll be saved by our government, or through some negotiation we'll definitely be saved. Christmas is approaching. So by the time Christmas comes, we'll be able to get out of it. And they had so much of faith, and faith is very important in life. And they had 100% faith that they will definitely come out of it. Now, they had so much of faith that they were not thinking anything else. They tell in real life, have faith that you'll definitely do it. Agreed. And they were following exactly that policy. Full faith was there. Now, Christmas came, Easter came, they were not released. One after another festival was passing, and they were not being released. Now, whenever a festival used to pass, they used to have that feeling that, hey, this Christmas also went away and we have not been released. So slowly what happened is that 100% faith which they had in their heart, slowly 1% by 1%, it started to break down. And sadly, what happened is they started to break down and collapse bit by bit, piece by piece. Because they were not ready for this acceptance that, what if I'm not released? So they were constantly thinking that particular day, Christmas, we are going to be released. So in between, they were not even focusing what is happening. They were simply saying, we'll be released, we'll be released. But when they were not released, it started to affect them really negatively, and they started to collapse. One by one, lives were lost, etc. But what is so special about James Stockdale, who was locked there? So James Stockdale, he was there in the prison for 8 years, and after 8 years, he comes out. And the author of this book, Jim Collins meets James Stockdale, and he was interviewing him, asking him that, how did you come out? What was the belief that kept you alive? And how did you know that you will come out? So what is so different about you and others? Others could not survive and come out because extreme torture was happening inside. Inhuman torture was happening. You can see the conditions. But this guy survived. Why? So he said that there is something very important in life, and it is this. Look at his strategy. So he says in this book, it is written, chapter number 4, that one should be extremely optimist in life. There is no problem. One should have 100% belief that, okay, I will definitely be released. I know it. But he said, but along with that, one should always be mentally ready, disciplined, and strong enough to face brutality till the time the result comes. So he says that I was locked here. And I was thinking that I will definitely be released. I know it, I will be released. Till the time I'll be released, if they torture me or anything happens, I have decided I'll be released in Christmas. But if I'm not released in Christmas, no problem. Whatever comes to me, I'll face it. And I'll wait for my release in the next Christmas. Again in the next Christmas. But in the meantime, if some brutality is happening, I will survive because I know one day I will be free. So that survival instinct and discipline to face the present is very important, along with hope of the future. So hoping for the future, but not living your present, very dangerous. So this is what Stockdale says. And Stockdale says this is called the Stockdale Paradox, that you are hopeful for the future, but be ready to face adversities in the present. So this is called as Stockdale Paradox. Everybody is saying India will achieve a rate of growth of 7%, roughly 7%. Everybody is saying it, looking at the momentum of India. But Chief Economic Advisor said we will be somewhere around 6.5. Why? He says it might be possible that we might not be able to reach 7%. Why? Because of some factors which are either domestic or global. So we should be ready for that. We should incorporate those factors in our analysis, and then we should plan for the future. If not this Christmas, next Christmas. So that's one. And second, he says, Chief Economic Advisor says that there are some challenges or headwinds because of which he says that I know we are definitely going to do well in future, but it might be possible that we might not be able to achieve 7%, 20%, 10% immediately. We might be stuck at 6.5 because of some realities. Reality number one, look at this picture, guys. Look at these pictures. So this is a map of India which shows that based on population, if you compare different states of India with different countries of the world, you can see which state of India is comparable to which other country in terms of population. So for example, look at Rajasthan, very much comparable with United Kingdom, UK. Now look at Pakistan, very close to UP, Germany, MP, isn't it? Now look at Bihar, Jharkhand area. So Bihar is like Egypt. Now Gujarat is very close to Italy. I mean, population-wise. So this is how, if you take different countries of the world in terms of population, it would fit on India's map. Which means that, are you able to understand one thing, guys? That, for example, if UK plans an economic policy for itself, it will be just this size. So one India is equal to so many countries. So when Government of India plans for India, actually we are planning for all these countries together. So anything goes wrong in one of the states of India and it creates a problem for rest of India. This is the problem. So we are huge, roughly 143 crore, and it's almost India is like a planet. So our Chief Economic Advisor is saying that we should be mindful of that. It's a big country, changes take time, right? So that's number one. Achha, whenever the country is very big, guys, the changes are never abrupt. Changes are always incremental and it takes a lot of time. And number two, the Chief Economic Advisor says that monsoon projections are also such that if there is anything wrong that goes in the monsoon, agriculture production takes hit, inflation might happen, and supply chain might be affected in India. So anything wrong in monsoon, agricultural disruption, supply chain disruption, inflation will be a problem, and then rate of interest will change in India. The bank policies, monetary policy will also change. That's also a risk. Another risk could be financial market risk across the world. So I'll give an example. Suppose US is going through some kind of problem. All the dollars from USA has gone to other countries. Now, US today decides that it wants all the dollars back so that the dollar can be used in investment in US. What will US do? US government will increase the rate of interest. When rate of interest in US will increase, money from India and other countries of the world will go back to US. And there can be problem in India's capital market because FII, FDI, everything will go away, right? Our currency might collapse. There might be a lot of problems. This is another problem which might be looking at. Third problem is global scenario. We know what is happening between Russia and Ukraine, how it is almost like a almost like a war, which is going to convert into a world war any day. It looks as if the situation is very volatile. Look at Israel and Palestine. Look at all different countries of the world putting sanctions on each other, fighting with each other. Very dangerous scenario. So that's geopolitics. Second is US elections. So whoever comes to US and the policies they make related to countries, for example, India, China, etc., that will also impact us. So the economic survey says that challenges like size, population, challenges like monsoon, financial market, global economy, etc., these should be taken into account. When we plan for a bright future, no problem. 100% faith is there that we'll do well. But we should also be mindful of the global headwinds, domestic challenges, so that if anything wrong happens, we should be in a position to accept and make changes. That is called as Stockdale Paradox. Thank you so much, guys.